Hello, everyone. My name is Loring Ray. And on December 6, 2012, our beautiful state of Washington legalized recreational cannabis use for adults over the age of 21. While this may be cause to celebrate for some of us, I hope that this speech will help you come to realize that this is not a time for celebration. The legalization of cannabis does and will continue to have a negative effect on our communities and our personal livelihoods. According to the American Cannabis Company, in 2016, people in North America spent an estimated $6.7 billion on legal cannabis and nearly $9 billion in 2017. Like most other industries, the marijuana business is run on money. What does that have to do with anything? Well, the people who are selling the cannabis do not care about you. All they want is your money. They will destroy your life simply for profit. They don't care. It's a business to them. And if their product destroys your life, if they get a buck out of it, then so be it. It's worth it. And second point, the average joint costs anywhere from $5 to $12. So you smoke one joint per day for a year. Even on the cheap side, you spent over $1,500 in that year. And for the more expensive joints that you might buy, you just spent over $4,000. That's what I plan to spend on my first car that I hopefully, fingers crossed, am getting rather soon. And somebody just blew that on pot. And if you thought marijuana was a safe drug for your body, not to mention your wallet, think again. Cannabis has been studied with much scrutiny in the years since it began to be legalized throughout America and other parts of the world. Like we realized with tobacco back in the 40s, this fun substance that we thought was fine for our bodies can actually have detrimental effects on our livelihoods. The main active ingredient in recreational cannabis is tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC. This chemical reacts in our brain with other chemicals to release dopamine into the brain and bloodstream. Dopamine is basically the brain's reward usage. It's like the chemical that makes us feel good. Small trace amounts of dopamine are released into the brain when we hear a song that we love or eat a food that we really like. Another example of higher levels of dopamine are released when intercourse takes place. And so the problem with this is that our cannabinoid receptors, or what picks up on the THC in our brain, they're all concentrated in the areas of the brain that have to do with thinking, memory, pleasure, coordination, and time perception. Our brain just wasn't built to process high levels of THC. The consumption of cannabis negatively affects all these different areas of the brain. The high usually lasts for around 2 hours, but the psychomotor impairment continues after the high has gone away, says Alina Bradford from Life Science magazine. And this psycho impairment causes us to have long-term effects on our brain and mental health. The main area that is affected by cannabis products is the hippocampus. And from that hippocampus, that's our memory center for our brain. And when that is disrupted or hurt, then our memory can't operate very well. There was a study done by Albert Batalla and others where they studied the neural imaging of chronic cannabis users who were both adolescents and adults. They studied this, and when they studied it, they realized that the users who had used cannabis for quite a while literally had shrunken hippocampuses. Their hippocampus had become smaller, and that was causing memory problems. They had also had a shrunk amygdala, which is the brain's emotion center and helps us process and feel emotion. So it also really hurt their emotional well-being, and it could not process the amounts of tetrahydrocannabinol that were going through the system, and it was really harming the system. I know both of my grandparents used cannabis in their early days. It is not something that they're proud of. And I asked them one day, well, what are the long-term effects? Like, what do you see in your life that is caused by your previous use of cannabis products? And one thing that kept coming up, they gave a long list of really negative effects that I can't really divulge into right now, but one of the main things that kept coming up was memory, and just thoughts and perceptions. Their mental well-being was just not there. They couldn't be in a moment very well. They were always complaining that they get lost in conversations. They would just be like talking in a perfectly clear sentence, and all of a sudden they would stop and they would just be confused. Well, I had attributed this behavior previously to old age. I mean, my grandfather is 80 and my grandmother is 74. But I asked my dad, did they do that before when you were a kid? And he said, yeah, that has been common in my life. So it wasn't old age. It was caused by their use of cannabis. And it's very sad to see someone that you love so much and who did something that they really felt bad about later, but couldn't change, and that changed their life in a very negative way forever. While cannabis may not be as lethal as other drugs, it will still have very real, very sad effects on one's life. You can get a DUI. Marijuana usage has had tons of driver's licenses taken away. You can have problems in your marriage due to financial wasting, just wasting so much money on this drug that's really hurting us. And I would say that it may seem like a good escape at the time, but the results they are purely temporary. They're not really going to help you. So I just beg you, please, just say no to artificial, fake, destructive drugs, and let's say yes to real happiness and real joy, something that can truly help us in our lives, and find the real root of the problems. Why are we going to the cannabis? Why are we hurting ourselves? Why are we doing all these different things, trying to give ourselves an escape? But the truth is that we're not actually fixing the problem. We're just delaying inevitability. And I hope that this speech has opened your eyes a little bit to that. Thank you so much.